Hi, my name is Cody. I'm a software engineer here in San Francisco, and in this video series we're recreating Lovable using LangGraph. In the last video we went over a high-level overview of why we're deciding to bring LangGraph into our project at this point. By representing our AI agent and workflows as a set of nodes and edges instead of just doing a more traditional kind of procedural 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 coding workflow, we're increasing the amount of flexibility that we're able to have and making it so that our agent can loop back to other nodes and other steps of the workflows it needs to, which actually makes our application so much more dynamic than if we were trying to do it otherwise. An alternative would be trying to implement a bunch of large language model calls in different loops and go-to statements, where LangGraph just has the entire set of tools already created, along with their really powerful LangGraph Studio, which allows you to really closely watch the agent and watch the LLM calls as it's running. It allows you to set breakpoints, it allows you to do retries, and it just enables a much deeper level of debugging and development for your agent that you would not be able to do otherwise. So given all that, let's dive right in. First, we're going to pull up the LangGraph Quick Start Guide. We'll start by clicking on their basic chatbot, and let's go ahead and let's grab the LangGraph package that we need to install. Let's open up Cursor. Let's go ahead and throw this in and run it. Okay, great. Now let's go ahead. I'm just going to scroll to the very, very bottom where they have the entire example laid out for us. Let's open up Cursor. Let's go ahead and make a new file. We're going to call this nodes.py and paste this in. Let's go ahead and run this file. Okay, there's a couple things that we're going to need to change here. Let's go ahead and change this so that we're not using Anthropic. Let's go ahead and use OpenAI's model. Let's get rid of this. Let's go LangChain OpenAI, import chat OpenAI. We'll let Cursor very quickly substitute this stuff. Okay, let's try this one more time. All right, well, that's right. We're using .env, so we need to pull that in. Let's also bring in human message. Actually, we don't even need human message. Let's get rid of that. Okay, let's try this one more time. Awesome. Okay, so we go ahead and create it. Let's go ahead and we want to invoke this graph and then get its output and print it. Let's go ahead and do that. And this is where we need human message. Let's go ahead and import that. Okay, let's run it. Awesome. Now, what's really cool is that since we already have all of the LangSmith API things set up, we can just go straight into our LangChain app, click on our project, and then the trace should be here already. Yep, there it is right there. Hello world. Awesome. The next step I'm going to do is I want to make sure that we can run this in LangGraph Studio. Now, they have an application you can do for the Mac, but I actually prefer just to use the command line interface, which will automatically connect it to LangSmith in your browser. So let's open up the LangGraph Studio guide. Let's click on the CLI. Let's pip install LangGraph-CLI. Let's go ahead and run that. Awesome. And now we should be able to run LangGraph dev. Oh, that's right. Okay, LangGraph dev. And now we're missing one thing. Now we need to add in our langgraph.json file. Basically just telling our LangGraph where to look for the agent workflow. Here we go. Here's their basic configuration. Let's go ahead and throw this in here. And then in this case, we're going to use our nodes.py graph. Awesome. Let's go ahead and run this one more time. Okay, we actually are missing one package. This is langgraph-CLI. LangGraph-CLI. There we go. Let's run it again. Okay, there we go. We had to run this command here. Now let's run LangGraph dev. Awesome. And then this will automatically launch it in our browser. Very, very, very cool. Okay. Now you can see it has this interactive kind of graph that is, it's kind of fun user experience being able to drag these around. And then let's go ahead and just, we have our messages list here. Okay, so in here, this is actually a list of messages, but we could just come in here. Let's go ahead and just say, can you hear me? Hit submit. And then this is LangGraph Studio. This is what's very, very beautiful about bringing LangGraph into our project, is we get this really nice interface for kind of watching our agent run in real time and kind of just seeing each of the inputs, seeing the step-by-step process that, when our agent's running. So given that, let's go ahead and pull in the, obviously our agent is not just this little basic chatbot. So what we're going to do is we're going to start refactoring our agent to follow this kind of nodes.py paradigm where we're creating nodes and edges, linking them all together, compiling them, and then we'll actually be able to run our agent directly in LangGraph Studio, and our iteration speed is going to speed up drastically. Let's dive right into it. Now, one way to kind of organize this that I found helpful in the past is just creating this folder called agents, and then what we'll actually do is each step in our workflow will have its own file, and we're just going to call each one of them kind of like its own individual agent. So for example, we'd have our initial user request routing agent, and then it would decide. Then we'll have our respond naturally agent as well as our write code agent. We might end up refactoring this in the future, but for now this should be a good enough implementation. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say route initial user message. We're just going to call it route initial user message.py. Then let's go ahead and create a respond naturally. We'll call it respond naturally.py. We'll call this one a design and plan.py. I'll call this one write HTML code.py. Now the other thing I like to do, just thinking ahead, is we're going to create a base class just called baseAgent.py. And this base class is going to be a class that gets inherited from all of our agents, and that way we can just implement all of our plumbing and things that we need just once. For example, setting up our LangChain client with the OpenAI API, and in the future this is going to be very, very helpful when we want to implement real-time streaming, because we can just have a WebSocket context that base agent keeps track of and holds to, and then what that means is in all of these kind of sub agents, we can write and stream information out of a WebSocket directly to the client interface, and we can wrap all of that in a really nice kind of hidden layer where the logic and implementation is only in base agent, and that way our kind of each node that we're implementing won't have to worry about any of those implementation details. It will just have a really nice kind of helper method it can call very quickly that it inherits automatically. Now to do this, we're actually going to implement our abstract method agent here. Okay, class base agent, very nice. And then let's go ahead and implement a couple of other things. We actually need our OpenAI client here. Let's pull in our schema as well. Let's go ahead and just init this. We'll go ahead and give this a name string. We'll give this a description. And in the future, let's see, we don't want LLM, but in the future we can actually pass in a WebSocket as well. For now, we don't need to do that. Let's go ahead and save those in our constructor. Let's go ahead and load our environment here as well. Okay, we'll have our LLM set up right here. We'll go ahead and make an invoke function as well. And we'll just return the output from the LLM that we invoke. Awesome. Okay, let's go ahead and add our init.py. That way we can, it will recognize that we can import this as a package in our other agents. Let's go ahead and import this. Awesome. So what we did is we just imported base agent from our file here. And cursor is really nice here. It kind of just knows what we want. Now the one thing is we're going to need to be our prompt. There we go. And what's cool with cursor is it will actually remember the information from the other files in your project, so that things like this become very quick and you can just kind of, it will kind of predict exactly what you're trying to do. Okay. So the way we're actually going to set this up is we're going to have this class, and then we're going to have a method call, because if you look in nodes.py, the thing that LangGraph actually needs is it needs the step, like the node is essentially just a method call. It's a function. And so in the case of these, we're actually going to have a function in here, but it is going to basically just instantiate and call this design and plan, kind of this base agent class. And the reason for doing that is because then we can kind of separate out a little bit of the logic, and we can implement unit tests against these specific agents. So like not all agents will need unit tests, but we might want to have some where we test the LangGraph functionality different than the actual implementation of that specific node. And so this kind of provides a nice little abstraction layer that prevents us from being too dependent on the LangGraph stuff, while also making it fairly, straightforward and simple, and allowing us to basically still inherit from a base object, from a base agent. It also allows us that if we want to, we can actually come down here and run our method very simply by just, basically calling, if name equals main, and then we can basically run this, or we can instantiate the agent, agent equals design and plan, and this is a very quick way to just kind of test, hey, did we implement this agent the right way. So let's go ahead and just test this. Okay, it doesn't like this. Oh, well, we didn't implement this, that's why. So this is an example of how you can kind of quickly test. So for example, yeah, like this didn't work. Let's see if this works. Client. Okay, it does not like that. Oh, we need to import some stuff that we're missing. Yeah, langsmith, import client. Let's import OS. Okay, chat message. Some of this we need to user message, existing HTML content, hello world. There we go. Let's try that. There we go. Nice. Cool. Let's double check in langsmith if that actually ran. Oops. Sweet. Yeah, and it did run. Awesome. Okay, so you need to do a couple things really quick. Then we actually need to return the content there. Let's try this one more time. In fact, looking a little closer, I think we can actually do something a little bit easier. From langchain import hub. I think we can just go, rather than client.pull, I think we just go hub. Awesome. Okay, super easy. Oh, we got to change a couple variable names. Okay, and I will spare you the details. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and implement that for the rest of these 4 files and just kind of test them. I could do it on camera, but you're just going to see me kind of running, debugging, doing that kind of process. Nothing really substantial there. Okay, just finished that up. With the right HTML code, we did have this third kind of input argument, which was this design plan. But all of them are essentially the same. It takes a user message, it takes existing HTML content, and then we have our design plan right there. Now the next step is to actually pull these all into our nodes.py. But another thing that we actually need to think about really quick is how we're going to represent this state that gets passed among the nodes in our LangGraph object. And basically this state in LangGraph is kind of this global store of information that the nodes will be able to read and write to regardless of whatever node you're currently in for the run. And this is actually how you get this persistence layer where you can kind of debug and rerun workflows, is because it has this kind of global state, almost this kind of global set of variables and information that the nodes kind of rely on to read information from in order to pass it along to the LLM prompt calls, or to, once it's finished, to write its information so that future nodes in the workflow can actually read from that specific thing that it might rely upon. So in this case, there's a couple of things that we're going to want to add here. One thing I do like to keep a little bit separate is just having an initial user message separate from the list of historical messages. That's just so that you can see the very, very first message regardless of whatever place you are in the workflow. Now I know that you could just reference the very first message in the list of messages, but for me this just makes a little bit more sense. It's just a little bit clearer. The next thing is we're going to go ahead and add in the HTML content. In fact, probably what we'll do is we'll actually do starting HTML content, and then let's add another one for ending HTML content. And by having these two separated out, it just makes it really easy because when you're debugging, you can see what the HTML content was when you first started the workflow, and then by the time you get to the end of the workflow, you can see what the LLM had changed, and that's a great way that you can actually in the future set up like a diff tool to kind of see what the code changes were. The other one is we should add a design plan, and that's just because the design plan is a very crucial step where we have this design and plan node where the output is actually the design plan, and then this write HTML code relies upon that design plan, so we need to make sure that we can reference that in the state. Now there's one step that we actually need to fix really quick, which is these input parameters don't get pulled in. So this method right here is what LangGraph is going to evoke. So we actually don't pass in these variables. We're actually just going to go ahead and pass in the state from the nodes.py. That's the object type that gets passed in for this method invocation. So let's go ahead and jump back into our nodes.py. Okay, so this is just called a class state. So let's go ahead and pull that in here. Okay, let's go ahead and pull the state in. Okay, Okay, then we set this input field here for this function call to just be the state object. From here, we're going to say our design requirements or design plan equals this. And then instead of these, we're actually going to do a get call. And that actually prevents an error from getting thrown if this key doesn't exist for whatever reason, which can happen especially when you're in LangGraph Studio. And then here, instead of returning the state, we actually need to return an updated state kind of object. And to do that, we're actually going to return, we're just going to return a hash. So the state is just a typed dict, right here. And if you, whatever you return, it will give it the key. That's like, if you just return a typed dict with the key, it will actually just go and update the state that way. You don't have to pass in all the information here. You just have to return the changed state variable here. So I'm going to go ahead and pause it and just implement that for the rest of our kind of nodes slash agent Python classes here. One thing to point out is whenever you're creating a router node, then this will, in our nodes.py, there's a way that you set a conditional edge. And in this case, we're actually going to return next, and then this is going to return the node. Basically, you're gonna give it the string. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna say if user intent equals write code. Yeah, then our next step is gonna be this write HTML code. Else we're gonna return this respond naturally. And that's basically how you route in LangGraph. And I'll show you more when we implement nodes.py how that exactly works with the conditional edges. Okay, let's move our nodes into our agents here, just so that it gets in the same namespace, in the same directory, and then we also have our init.py, so that will get pulled in correctly as a package. Awesome. Okay, so that one's working. Let's go and check all the other ones. I'm gonna go ahead and pause it and just kind of run all these other ones, make sure they're all working fine. Okay, very nice. So those are all working now. So what we're gonna do now is we need to import these into our nodes.py. But in fact, I want to organize this file just a little bit more, so we're actually going to create a new folder in here. Okay, so we're going to pull these all into nodes.py now, so let's go ahead and come up here. And what we're going to do is we're going to just say from, here we go. So from agents, design and plan, we're going to import each of these one by one. Okay, awesome. And then down here, let's get rid of this method call here. Okay, and let's see how cursor did. So basically what we're going to use in the graph builder, we're going to add this node for each individual one, and then we're going to add an edge from each one. So in this case, from our route initial user message. And then for our route initial message, we actually need to do a conditional, add conditional edges. Okay. And from here, it's either going to go to respond naturally or design and plan. Okay, awesome. And then from design and plan, then our edge goes to write HTML code. And then it gives us this graph, it compiles it. Now one thing we're going to do though is let's go ahead and wrap this in a build workflow method call. So that's going to be this entire graph here. And then here we're going to return graph. Okay. For example, when we run this as a standalone file, we'll just go graph equals build workflow. And then in our langgraph.json, we're actually going to need to change this to say build workflow. Okay. Let's go ahead and test this really quick by just running our nodes.py method. Okay, it doesn't like the agent's input, which makes sense because we actually moved nodes.py to be in the same directory. So let's get rid of these here. Okay. Okay, it's not liking our naming convention. So what we're going to do here, we're just going to add node to the very end of each one. And then we're going to have to go in and update all of these really quick. I'll pause that while I do that. Okay, we'll go ahead and update those calls right here as well. Okay, now let's go ahead and try that one more time. My mistake. We actually cannot do this. We're doing a circular import. Okay, so we're going to have to pull this state out into its own object here. So we're just go ahead and change this to be state.py. Let's go ahead and move this into its own file here. Okay, let's go ahead and import our state. Yeah, in fact, now we can just get rid of all this. Okay, let's go to each of our files and change where we import that. I'll pause it and run through this really quick. One thing that we are missing is that to kind of make this next syntactic sugar work where we can just return with this state. We actually need to add this lambda function in here where we're going to just do a lambda xx next. Okay, there we go. And then now we give it the methods there. All right. Okay, awesome. So we got this working. Now let's go ahead and jump into LangSmith just to confirm that the tracing is working okay. Okay, here it is. And now it's cool. So moment of truth. So now in LangSmith, this starts to get even more advanced because you can actually take the entire LangGraph trace and it routes everything. It nests everything into one workflow, so you can actually see the name of each node. So you can see this route initial user request. You saw that it responded with this output respond naturally. You can see that it then took us to our respond naturally right here. It called the runnable, which is internal LangChain primitive that will get evoked. But then it actually moves it to this respond naturally node right here. Let's go ahead and jump back in. Let's try a different one. So let's try, rather than hello world, let's say, you know, please change this background to white. Let's see what this one does. Okay, we're going to run Python agents /nodes.py. Let's go and see what it does. And now it's running the workflow, it's thinking, it's doing it. And then one thing you notice here, it says, hi there, looks like you haven't specified a project yet. How can I help you? So there's something still a little bit off with it. And what I want to try and do now is let's go ahead and try to run this in LangGraph Studio and just kind of see what comes up when we do that. So I'm going to go back to our terminal. Let's go ahead and run LangGraph dev. There we go, now it launched. There it is, awesome. A little bit of debugging, pretty normal when you're doing projects like this. Okay, so now we have the visualization of our graph. So this is very similar to the iPad drawing that I showed you in one of the last videos. And what's cool about this though is that one, we have this really nice interface. Look at this. Look how crazy this is. I can drag it around. All jokes aside, it's just nice. It's nice to be able to kind of look at these. There is something that is kind of funny. I love to just kind of drag these around for some reason. But the thing that's just most important is now we can actually run our workflow. And the other thing that's really cool about this is we can very quickly kind of save a state out from a LangSmith trace and then rerun stuff in the future. And so I'm not quite ready to show you yet, but like what that means is that we'll be able to send a message into LlamaBot, and as we're just normally developing it, when the agent doesn't do what we want it to do, we can go into LangSmith and we can actually just copy out the exact state from that specific trace, and then we can go into LangGraph Studio, and basically we go to this view raw and we can paste in the JSON, and it just has that state, and then that means we can recreate that exact thing. So if there's an error, we can recreate that exact error, and from production as well, right? So like this will be like, obviously we're just developing, we're testing it, but if this app was in production, then you could go back and rerun traces from users if something went wrong, and that's a very powerful thing to do with LangChain, or sorry, with LangSmith and LangGraph Studio. In the meantime, now let's just go ahead and get our first run going. So we're going to go ahead and just add an initial user message. We'll say, please change this background of this game to white instead of black. Starting HTML content, you see how this could potentially be problematic. I'm going to leave this empty. In fact, let's leave both of those empty. We'll just do an empty string like that. And let's go ahead and just hit submit and see if this will run. Okay, so now you can see it's thinking. Okay, so route initial user message, and it goes to respond naturally. And now this is actually the thing that we wanted to test, which if you see, it went to respond naturally, and that's not what we want it to do. In this case, it should have been pretty clear that it should have routed it to the right code, down the right code path. And so I actually want to go ahead and let's go take a look at the LangSmith traces. Let's go to smith.langchain.com. Let's go to our tracing projects, go LlamaBot open source, and we should be able to see this LangGraph Studio run. Here it is. Please change the background to white instead of black. You see we have our state in here. So in the future, if I wanted to, I could look at this raw input. I could come in here and I could click this copy button and we could rerun this exact thing. But if you look here, we do route initial user message. It goes into the chat prompt template, and look at this. The user message in the existing HTML content is actually null. And that's a big red flag, right? If we go to our actual LLM call, then we can actually read the content. you're an if-else statement, you return only the da-da-da-da, and this says, here's the user's message, right? And it's blank. So there's something wrong with the plumbing of our app. Let's just go ahead and look. It's probably something to do with this state object, state.get. Oh yeah, look at this, user message. It should be initial user message. I believe that's the name of the state, right? Let's go back to LangGraph Studio. Okay, so that's going to be changed on all of these. So route initial user message. Let's go to state.py. Yeah, initial user message, that's what it needs to be. Existing HTML content. In fact, I want to change some of these up a little bit. I want this to be existing HTML content, and I want this to be final HTML content. That does mean we're going to have to... Oh, no, that's right. Existing HTML content, okay. Okay, now let's go ahead and try to run this again. I'm actually going to go here now and click View Raw. And I am going to paste in this copied out state from LangGraph, or from LangSmith. Okay, key error, write HTML code. Okay, so didn't like that, so let's come into here. Let's go write HTML code. During task with name, route initial user message. Okay, so it's not happy about write HTML code. Oh, this is that the right? Okay, so it's not happy about this write HTML code. Let's go into our nodes.py. Oh, you know what? That's what it's not happy about. It actually needs to go to design and plan. So what's happening is in our add conditional edges, we actually didn't have the write HTML code. We had it for design and plan. So in this case, we need to swap this to be design and plan. And cursor already knew we had to do that. Okay, so that should be fixed now. Let's try to run this one more time. See what the next error is, right? So the other thing that's cool is you can come back here and just click this continue button, and it will pick up right where it left off. So if an error gets thrown in one specific node, then it will pause the execution. You come back, you fix the code in the project, you save it, and then you hit continue, and it can run again. Okay, very nice. So we did see it did continue execution from route initial user message. It did throw another error, but let's just trace this a little bit. It went to design and plan, and here's the output of the large language model. And it gave the entire it gave me the entire plan. And then let's just look and see. Oh, write HTML code, human message not defined. Okay, so this is just a schema problem. So let's go to what are we doing here? Write HTML code, and then we're missing our LangChain schema import human message. So let's go fix that, and then the magic right here, boom. You just hit continue, right? So you fix the code, you come back to LangGraph Studio, you hit continue, and it picks up on the execution immediately. If you weren't doing this and you had an error like that, for one, it would take longer to see the error that pops up because it wouldn't call it out right here immediately during the execution, because you'd be running it and you would have to be going back into your logs, right? You'd have to look at the output of the logs, and you have to dig through it, and it would throw an error. And I guess you could look on the error logs, but let's just look at that real quick. Like look at this massive amount of text that just gets dumped onto our terminal console, and it doesn't jump out immediately. It doesn't jump out immediately what exactly we have to fix. Like, whereas if you look over here, it shows right here, name error, human message is not defined. So it looks like that's still through the same error though. Let's go ahead and take a look. Name human message is not defined. That is weird because we did just import this. Let's go and try one more time. That is a little bit suspicious to me. Unsupported message type class list. It could be how we're adding this to our list. That could also be the problem. Oh yeah, I think it could be this. All right, let's take a shot with cursor here. Let's copy out this message. Not implemented, unsupported message type, class list. I'm lazy, right? We could go and think through this a little bit more carefully, but oh, okay. Oh, right. I just had the wrong. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's just see if that fixes it. See, and this is part of you know, what it means to be a developer in 2025. Is you can be a little more lazy than you used to be. Okay, let's see if this fixes it. No, it's still not happy. Okay, we're gonna run it from the top. I actually killed the LangGraph dev server, and we're gonna kick it off again. And I ran it from the very beginning rather than just running from that node. Okay, okay, so there was just some issue where it was showing the error a little bit still. Okay, but it did finish this. Yeah, it gave us the output from HTML code. Yeah, here it is right here. Game container, get context, 2D, game canvas, okay. Okay, and it is appending some stuff to our messages here. Okay, cool. So we're definitely getting a lot closer. Now, there's still a little bit that we're going to have to kind of think through. But in general, now we can run this from LangGraph Studio. And what's nice about this is it just allows us to do a lot deeper debugging if we have issues that actually happen with our agent. So I'm just going to hurry and do a quick cleanup here to make sure that everything's working. And like one thing we do need to hurry, let's just hurry and test this, is that we can actually come into our interface here. And let's just see if we can like, please make the background white instead of dark. Let's just see if this works. Oh, you know what? I don't think we actually showed how to, I don't think we actually connected it, because now it's still going to hit our chat.html. Or sorry, it's going to go through chat.html, it's going to go to app.py. Okay, so what we need to do though is we actually need to come into nodes and build the workflow here, and then invoke the graph essentially. So what we're going to do, let's just go ahead and go into our app.py. And here's the fun moment of truth, right? We got all this complex code, and we're going to be able to get rid of most of it. So let's go ahead and come. Okay, so we're going to do this. Okay, so we do need to still read the HTML content. It's still going to do, okay, so it's going to pull the prompt out. It's going to format a JSON response. Okay, so either way, we're going to need to return with a JSON response. Let's go ahead and get rid of, we don't need this anymore. We don't need this because it already routes, the agent nodes already route. I'm going to comment this out. I don't think we need it, but I mean, we will have to return some sort of JSON response. Let's get rid of all this. Okay, and we are still going to need to write the HTML to the page here, which I think we can actually do in the node. So that actually might be something that we should do in the actual graph in here. So in fact, let's go ahead and pull this out. Okay, so it's going to do a try. Let's get rid of this. Okay, so what we're going to do is put a breakpoint right here. So let's go ahead and to get our graph, we have this build workflow. Let's import that from our nodes. So we're going to go from agents.nodes, import build workflow, graph equals build workflow. Let's get rid of this JSON message. Okay, let's go ahead and just for good measure, I'm going to restart our Uvicorn. Let's refresh this. Okay, let's say please change the background to purple. Sending request to AI model. Okay, so I think it did invoke the LangGraph. Yeah, I think it did. All right, we have our breakpoint. Let's click on output. Okay, so we do have our output now. Hi there, I'm LlamaBot. Okay, so that is working. There's a couple other things we're going to need to do though. Yeah, see, because our JSON response doesn't know. So what we'll do is we'll format this JSON response with the output from the graph, and in the meantime, what we can do is we also need to make our page writing where it actually writes the HTML response, we need to actually make, let's just do that in the graph. Okay, so the output that it gives us is this dictionary, and if you go output messages, it actually gives us all of the messages. So we're gonna actually change our JSON response a little bit. Let's change this to be, let's just do messages. Yeah, we'll do output.get messages. There we go. And it's gonna format them a little funny. It's like this list of human messages. Let's go ahead and just have it respond with those. And what that means though is we are gonna have to write to the HTML from the actual agent. So let's go into write HTML code. And before we return this, let's go ahead. We're actually going to, what was it? I think it was, you know what? Let's go into our source control here. Let's make this a little bigger so we can, here we go. Here we go. Okay, and return response is the actual HTML content in this case. Get rid of these logs, or at least that, right error. Okay, cool. I think that will actually do it. So this will, I think this will write the HTML code, but I'm not sure what it will respond with. So let's go ahead and just go back into app.py. Let's get rid of this breakpoint. Let's start this again. Go ahead and run this. Now the other thing that's cool is we can go, yeah, let's go into LangSmith, just kind of watch this as it goes from step to step. Processing time is not defined. Okay. Let's try that one more time. Please change the background to purple. Oh, it doesn't like it because we're responding with human message back as a JSON object. I think it might have wrote the page though. Should we try it? Should we refresh? No, okay. So there's a little bit of debugging that we're gonna have to do. Okay, so we sent the message, change background to purple here, see what it does. Look at our trace right here. I think it might have finished, but we're gonna have to update the oh, nope, it did not like that. Alright, let's try this one more time. Change background to purple. Okay, see what it does. I'm gonna pause it. Okay, it did respond. Let's see if it actually did it though. Okay, so there's some issues here. If we go into our actual call, it did finish. Let's just double check. Let's look at our output from this. Change anything to purple? See, it did add this background purple. Did it write it to the file? Let's go in here. No, it's not writing it to the file. Alright, so let's go ahead and go into our write HTML code. Put a breakpoint right here. In fact, we have this page HTML right here. Oh no, it does have it as purple. Huh. Oh right, but it's just putting it as... Okay, so I think it is working. It's just that we're not giving a good prompt. Let's say change or add an arrow that is always on the screen, pointing to where the red dot is. So it's guiding the user. Okay, let's kick that off. Let's go ahead and back to go to Langsmith. Okay, we're going to our design and plan node. Okay, now write HTML code. This one's still pending. And we'll need to fix this too. Eventually, where basically we need to pass back that right code. Okay, we did get to this breakpoint. Let's go ahead and just look here. Okay, where are we? Breakpoint here. Okay, let's just go ahead and click continue. Okay, so we did get to this f.write return response. What's the return response? Okay, I think it did write it. Let's go ahead and click continue. Okay, let's refresh. Oh. Okay, so it did add a little. I don't know if it works quite right. Yeah, definitely broken. Okay, I mean it's doing what we want, but okay, so now what we could do though is we could go and take the run out of Langsmith up here. Let's copy this out. So you actually want to click on the initial, yeah, here we go, raw input. Copy this out. Let's go into LangGraph Studio, put this in here, and you hit submit, and then we can go and we can actually inspect. I mean, we could already inspect it from here, but we can actually run it. Like, let's see what the output was from design. The output would have been from this. So yeah, here's a high-level plan for adding a little on-screen compass. Add the arrow to your HTML. Oh, notice this too. The arrow is sideways, so I can actually account for why it's like. We might need an arrow that's like pointing upwards vertical. So that could actually be the issue right there. Yeah, because if we look at this, oh, it's not going to show us because it's on a canvas. But either way, we're starting to make some progress. So I'm going to wrap up this video. It's been a little bit of a longer one, but essentially we implemented LangGraph Studio, making it a little bit easier to just kind of see our agent and kind of run with our agent. We got this nice kind of visualization here where we can, let's click cancel. We have this nice visualization here where we can actually see the nodes as we're developing them. And then not only that, but we can run, set breakpoints, and do reruns. It will pause the execution if there's an error, and then you can fix the error in your code and hit continue. So it just brings our iteration speed up much, much faster. So now in the next handful of videos, we're actually going to try to iterate on this agent even faster and see how much better we can make it. Right now, there's still quite a bit of issues, like, you know, even just like this little issue and little things like that can just kind of cause problems. So we're just going to see if we can actually make this closer to Lovable. Right now, we have a very, very bare bones kind of basic version of Lovable, and you know, I mean, you can hardly even call it that, right? But at least now we have the foundation, though, that we can start to debug it a little bit better, iterate on the prompts, because the prompts will make a big difference. And yeah, we can kind of speed this thing up and get this where we want it to be. So anyways, thanks. I'll see you in the next video.